Well, good morning. Hey, this microphone works. And welcome to the United States Naval Academy. Can I see a show of hands of the number of people that have never been here before? Yeah, all right. Well, welcome. We are very proud to host you here. I suppose for some of you all who come from warmer climes, the term icebreaker took on a new meaning last night, and I trust that you all had a good time out at O'Callahan's. Annapolis is a national treasure and is the home of the oldest continuously operating state capitol, and we're very proud to call it home. But this school has been here for 165 years. Some of you all come from schools much older, some much younger, but we all share something in common, and that's why you're here today. This is a school about leadership, just as you all have found inspiration in the schools where you attend. We have much in common in this room, and I would offer that the opportunity to share those experiences and to focus on leadership here for the next 3 days will be a wonderful opportunity to meet so many people and get so many different perspectives on such an important topic. I would be remiss if I did not thank the gentlemen in the front row here, and Mitch and Linda Hart, Admirals Rinskop and Childs and McNitt, and the class of 56, people that have made a real difference here at the Naval Academy in sponsoring the 28th Leadership Conference at the United States Naval Academy. This year's theme is the cycle of success. And for many of you all, you're entering this cycle. But I must tell you, as I've watched the postings and the blogs and the clips, the process whereby many of you all came here was absolutely fascinating. You come with credentials that I would tell you when I was your age, I certainly did not possess. I think you will find in the opportunities in between the speakers that there's just as much to learn as there is from a remarkable list of speakers and panelists. And our goal is to further refine your leadership skills over the course of the next 3 days. So no visit to the Naval Academy would be complete without a sea story. I mean, that's what sailors do. So I'll tell you a quick one about a fella named Chester W. Nimitz. Now, he grew up in a place called Fredericksburg, Texas, born in 1885. Pretty far from the water. Many of you all are pretty far from the water. His experience was very limited with the Navy, but in point of fact, his inspiration didn't even come from his father. His father died before he was born. His grandfather, however, had grown up in Germany, had served in the German Merchant Marine, and told him stories about life at sea and the remarkable challenges that were to be had there. He was shaped by his grandfather, who told him the sea, like life itself, is a stern taskmaster. The best way to get along with either is to learn all you can, then do your very best, and don't worry, especially about the things over which you have no control. So we're here today to talk about those things over which we do have control, both within ourselves and within those who will serve with us. And I use the term service in its broadest context because while we in the military service may try to define it more narrowly, it is truly about service to the nation. And that's what unifies each and every one of us in this room. It's a remarkable gift and privilege if you think about it. Regrettably, every decision every element in our life can't be planned for, nor can you expect to lead and make decisions without commensurately making mistakes. When Nimitz was just an ensign, 22 years old, he ran a destroyer aground, ran it into the mud in the Philippines. Now, just for those of you who aren't in the naval service or haven't spent time around sailors, that's considered a bad thing. You don't want to run aground. He was court-martialed for it, received a letter of reprimand. In today's age, that would be a career-ending event. But for Chester Nimitz, who was, by all accounts, a very self-effacing person, he took the lessons from that grounding and he turned it to his advantage. He learned from that experience. So integrity, hard work, setting the proper example, and motivating those with whom he served ultimately afforded him greater opportunity. In fact, 2 years after his grounding, which is just amazing to me, he was already in a series of commands of submarines and then ultimately a group of ships. As the First World War came on, Chester Nimitz was then called upon to serve as a chief of staff for the commander in the Atlantic. So he got a great exposure to our allies and the important perspectives that our nations overseas and our friends bring to us. But interestingly enough, after serving there, he was not just in submarines, he was executive officer of the USS South Carolina, which was a big old battleship, which was the mainstay of the Navy at that time. He was then sent to Pearl Harbor, where he built the submarine base. So another element in his life is added. After the First World War was over, Nimitz was sent up to the Naval War College, which we have up in Newport. I know we have a lot of Northeasterners here. That is an institution that has examined the concept of conflict. And it was there in 1922 where Nimitz actually drew up a plan whereby he would, if it were left to him, how he would conduct an offensive campaign in the Pacific. It's ultimately the structure, the framework around which he based the campaign that successfully defended and ensured victory in the Pacific. After War College, he was sent to Berkeley, where he stood up the first of what was to become the ROTC units that we know today. That model and his foresight are things that we have inherited. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, Nimitz, who was then just a two-star, received instructions from President Franklin Delano Roosevelt through the Secretary of War, Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox. He said, tell Nimitz to get the hell to Pearl and stay there until the war is won. Now that's the kind of leadership guidance we need, right? Just very broad. How hard can that be? I mean, he's only got, he's behind. There's the Japanese at that time had a great advantage on us. His superb leadership was key, not to mention the millions of Americans and allies that served in the Pacific campaigns to ensure that 4 years later on the deck of the USS Missouri that he could sign the peace agreement, the Japanese surrender, on the deck of the USS Missouri. Today, World War II is a distant memory, and in the political world, many of the markers are either diminishing or have been already forgotten. We take for granted that the outcome of that war was a foregone conclusion, or that Nimitz was just given free rein and he easily succeeded. Nothing could be further from the truth. Absent a couple of key victories in the Coral Sea and at Midway, the outcome of the war could have been dramatically different. Not only did Nimitz face extraordinary logistical challenges, but he also had to test his leadership under pressure with some larger-than-life figures. He had included in that group Admiral MacArthur, one of the most accomplished graduates of West Point. He had Bull Halsey, who was aptly named as sort of a bull in a china shop. And he had the admiral for whom this hall is named, Pete Mitcher. He put together a very unique team that could ultimately fight and win in the Pacific, much as Eisenhower did in Europe. Those challenges, I think, for us are difficult to imagine, and yet we stand on their shoulders today, in the inheritors of this remarkable gift. Nimitz never wrote his memoirs. He said he was afraid that if he provided his own views, he would in some way diminish those accomplishments of others. I would hope that we could take that selfless type of leadership as one of the elements that we would wish to emulate. So our hope is that this conference can spur the dialogue, can get the juices flowing, encourage you to consider the uncertain future you will face and the endless possibilities that will challenge you as a leader. Perhaps like Nimitz, you too will build a plan for a successful life, a life of consequence that may sometime prove to be the thread upon which we will all rely, and that will shape the future of our nation and the world for years to come. Welcome aboard.